Our meeting tonight is now open for sharing testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Jim from Arizona, go ahead.
Good evening. I am most grateful for Christian Science as a way of life. It has been my way of life for a goodly number of years. Just yesterday, I was about to take my tour, and I looked at the sky, and it was very dark and lowering, especially over the Wallaby Mountains. And yet I did go. And I had my whole tour, and I wasn't home more than a few minutes, and a downpour came. And it was a very, very heavy rain. And I was very well protected, and it was not damaged a bit with the rain. And I'm most grateful for this demonstration of the effectiveness of Christian Science. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne from Florida, go ahead.
Can you have Dave go first?
Okay, Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, she's tailing on to the end of mine. Early yesterday morning, we had a huge water main break in our neighborhood. 84 homes were without water, and the street was flooded. I got involved right away and called our management company. Once the water was shut off, it turned out that the plumbers had to dig a huge hole about 6 feet deep and replace a 7-foot section of pipe that was 8 inches in diameter. Water was constantly seeping in, hindering the removal as well as the installation of the new pipe. When I saw all the problems they were having, I called the practitioner in this church and asked for help. At the time, it didn't look like we would have water back by the end of the day, and we were contemplating going to a hotel. The practitioner said she would help and to keep her posted. I constantly monitored the progress and worked with the thought that God was governing this entire situation, the hands of the plumbers, and there could be no resistance. Very soon, things began to turn around, and by early evening, they were able to tighten everything down, and we all had our water back. I was very grateful for how it all worked out and for the work of the practitioner. I'm grateful to be a member here where we practice Christian Science the way Mrs. Eddy intended. And as was said in tonight's readings, it can meet all needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Joanne, would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you. I also would like to give gratitude for the practitioner's work in the quick resolution of that water main break. To all human sense, it looked like it would take more than a day to repair. So to have it fixed by the end of the day was nothing but the power of God working. I'm also grateful that at no time were we inconvenienced. We were able to use the restrooms in our community clubhouse, and the staff there also offered us containers of water to bring home. At a nearby store, we were also able to buy plenty of bottled water, which my husband shared with the thirsty workers repairing the pipe. I'm grateful for Mrs. Eddy for discovering this wonderful Christian Science, which will heal anything, for the practitioner's prayerful help in this situation, and for this healing service tonight. And thank you for those beautiful readings.
Thank you. Janet from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for Christian Science. I'm grateful for my practitioner who has supported me, helped me, and made me understand the power and the presence of our Father, Mother, God, that His power is all. Through this realization, I'm learning to do my best to practice this Christ Science daily. I'm so grateful for this Plainfield Christian Science Independent Church, which does teach Mary Baker Eddy's pure Christian Science. I'm grateful for the dedicated members of this church who provide the watches, Bible study, roundtable, all of the lessons for our services, volumes of articles and recordings, the Sunday School, newsletter, forum highlights, Love is the Liberator, and the websites, which are in many languages. This church is the light of the world. It is a city set on a hill, which can never, ever be hid. Thank you so much, and thank you for the readings, Amanda.
Thank you. Donna from Oregon, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. There's an article in the March 2021 Love is the Liberator that's absolutely wonderful. It was written by Mary Beth Singletary and is on page 3. The title of the article is Pray Without Ceasing. My favorite part is the first 3 sentences in paragraph 3, which says, quote, prayer does amazing things. It brings about a humble state of mind because it's saying, Father, I cannot take care of this without your help, and with you all things are possible. When a person turns to God in humility, this opens the door for him to hear God's voice and loving counsel, unquote. I intend to continue studying the whole article, and I sincerely hope I can quickly learn to pray without ceasing. Thank you.
Thank you. Sherry from California, go ahead.
Thank you. With the permission of my grandson, and with so much gratitude, I share this testimony. Not too long ago, my grandson, a young adult, called me from the airport. He was about to board the plane and had begun to experience very extreme anxiety. He was very quiet and felt he should not get up or move at all. So I, too, became quiet and said, let's just be still for a few minutes, and I will pray. His response was, I'm trusting. After a few minutes, I said his name, and he said it had only lessened a tiny bit. Mrs. Eddy says in Science and Health that for victory over a single sin, we give thanks and magnify the Lord. I told him that tiny bit was proof enough that the truth was working. So let's just be grateful and quiet again and expect more. His response again was, I'm trusting. This time we were quiet for quite some time. There was no fear felt, just very calm power, effortless, just that mother love that is God, loving her sweet child. And then I heard him say, oh my gosh, I love you so much. Thank you so much. And when he found that he could stand up strong again, he said and expressed to me so much love and gratitude. My grandson has always liked me to use the synonym love when talking about God. And love has always been what he so freely expresses and was expressing to me. I told him it was his trusting in that love with a capital L that brought about his freedom. He was calm, safe, and so happy and very grateful. This experience had lasted about 30 minutes, at which time I heard the announcement for him to board the plane, and off he went, free, as was I. Though I have been the female voice to whom he has gravitated in his life, this experience was my proof that God has always been the mother voice on which both he and I rely. That, too, is a great freedom. We together witnessed it that day, and for this, I am so, so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Dede from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm grateful to be learning through Christian Science what it means to feel God's presence and protection, and to know that He is taking care of every detail of my life. I used to mentally carry around a list of things to worry about each day. I realized very recently that no matter what task, situation, or pending event comes to my thought during the day, even if it seems to be a challenging one, I don't feel the overwhelming and frightening sense of anxiety that I used to. Rather, I feel a comforting sense of calm and confidence that God is already taking care of it and is guiding me in exactly what I need to do and keeping me from what I don't need to do in order to show me the very best result. I pray to be more trusting, patient, grateful, and loving continually, and I'm realizing progress and feeling more empowered by God rather than automatically defeated from day to day. This is a tremendous healing for me, and one that I'm most grateful for because I know it will allow me to bless others. It is a constant proof that love's provision meets all needs. Thank you, Amanda, for tonight's beautiful reading, and thank you for all the testimonies given so far tonight. I'm very, very grateful to be here tonight.
Thank you. Patricia from Canada, go ahead.
When I was a young teenager, my mother was diagnosed with clogged varicose veins in both legs. She went to a hospital, and a number of veins were cut out, and the skin was closed up with large metal skewers from the ankle to above the knees. Although everyone loved my mother dearly, I was the only one in the family that had enough stomach to handle changing the bandages and do the heavy-duty nursing required. That sort of operation would be a great incentive to anyone just to keep on praying hard to avoid ever having to go through something like that. It certainly was an incentive for me. And years later, after I had just become a Christian Scientist, someone pointed out that I had a spot on my leg, which frightened me. I started to worry, and after a few months, my legs looked just like my mother's legs did before her operation. It felt like I was walking around on numb stumps, and I walked very unsteadily. But through my studies of the Bible and Science and Health, written by Mary Baker Eddy, I rejected the claim of human heredity and replaced it with the idea of spiritual inheritance by claiming God's Spirit as my mother. Jesus said, "Call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father, which is in heaven." And Mary Baker Eddy brought out the concept of God as mother. So I reasoned, I inherit unlimited being. Matter is not cause. God's Spirit is cause. All that I get from God, and all that I get is good. And this has become my mantra thereafter. Hymn 182 was also very helpful. Make channels for the streams of love where they may broadly run. And love has overflowing streams to fill them, every one. Now, that's true veins. Nothing clogged there. I declared to myself, I'm filled with thought channels of God's free-flowing love. I looked up the word vein in the dictionary and found that one of the meanings for vein can mean in a distinctive way or style. For example, the meeting was presented in the same humorous vein that his uncle had previously conducted those meetings. Jesus said, I am the way. So, Christliness is the true vein, way, style. The healing came very fast and was permanent thereafter. Thank you, Father, Mother, Love, for this. I close this testimony in a very grateful vein that God has recently guided me to the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent, and that they've accepted me to be a member. Hallelujah. May I prove worthy such a grace. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda, for the reading tonight. It was just so comforting to hear. I like where you read that it says that all men we praise the Lord for his goodness and for his wonderful work to the children of men. It reminded me about experience that I had, I believe it was a little less than 2 weeks ago. It was around evening time, and here in New Jersey, we started experiencing extreme weather, and it was so thunderous, very thunderous evening, and it continued until the time when I was about to leave for work. And as the time started to approach, I began to get worried because the thunder was so loud, vibrant, that you can actually feel the vibration inside the house. And it was consistently with minimum break between. And I started, negative thoughts started creeping into my thought, because a day or 2 days earlier, there had been in the news about catastrophic events that happened in some places as a result of thunder. So these thoughts start to creep in, and it wasn't happening at that moment to calm me down or to realize that God was in control. And luckily to me, I began to think aright, knowing that God has the whole universe in his hand, including me and everybody. And there's no event or anything that's happening outside of God's care. So I started to think aright and start to focus my thought in God and his goodness, and many times he has calmed the weather. In my experience, he has done so. And that was where my thought was. And then I started thinking and praising God in my thought, committing myself, everybody in my household, and my neighborhood and entire universe into God's care, knowing that nothing is happening outside of God's care and his goodness. And when it was time, and I forgot to mention that earlier on, I was also thinking about calling my manager to tell her that I wasn't going to be able to make it to work tonight. But I did not make that phone call. So as my thoughts start to be right in its rightful place with God, the weather started to come down. And when it was time for me to leave the house, it was completely calm. It was very, very calm. There was no sign of any thunder or anything. So I got in my car and I started driving. I continued to pray as I was driving, committing myself, because I was taught here in this church that Mrs. Evans, that when you drive, always pray that God is in control of your car and every other car on the road. And I was having this thought inside me, and as I was driving, knowing that God is in charge of my driving, my wheels, and every driver on the road and every wheel on the road. It was the driving from my house. It was about 45 minutes drive to work, but it was one of the most calmest driving I ever experienced. There was no sound of thunder. The rain completely stopped. It was a very calm evening. My heart was filled with joy. And I went to work and I shared the good news with my co-workers, and everybody was very happy. And there was no thunder, there was no rain, everything stopped. God took care of it. Like I said, nothing was happening outside his care. It was all good. All glory and praise to God. And I thank God for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy.
I'm very grateful to be a member of this church and for all that Christian Science has brought to my life. On page 110 of the 1936 primary class, Bicknell Young says, quote, "Christian Science does not have to be advertised. It needs to be demonstrated," end quote. I found that to be very impressive when I first read it around 7 years ago, though I can't really say I knew at the time the full extent of what demonstration meant. I had come from a background of print design and marketing, and had seen how advertising would have us pursue many things that have no true value. Over time, I've had the opportunity to witness how the pure Christian Science demonstrated here in Plainfield goes out to bless every receptive heart around the world. No marketing plan or computer program could ever take place of the power of the Christ message going out to meet the need. Because of its divine origin, Christian Science is valuable beyond calculating, which means to me that we don't need to persuade anyone, but rather we need only show the normal and natural way of this science and how it brings healing and comfort to all who practice it. This past weekend, we had Nathan from California and Jeremy from Brooklyn visit, and each expressed such gratitude for all that goes on here. Nathan told me that he's not even sure how he found our YouTube channel, only that it showed up right when he needed it. Of course, that's no surprise since Mary Baker Eddy has assured us on page 494 of Science and Health that, quote, "Divine love always has met and always will meet every human need," end quote, as Amanda read tonight. I have such gratitude for how God is working through me and each member of this church to bless the world. What a joy it is to be a part of this God-directed mission. I thank God for Christian Science and this church. Thank you.
Thank you. Chardell.
Hello. My gratitude tonight is for the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent lesson sermons, and in particular, this week's lesson on truth. Truth has always been one of my favorites. Because of my Protestant background, truth meant telling the truth and being truthful. It wasn't until finding Christian Science that I started to understand the depth of what truth really is, and as a synonym for God. While studying truth this week, it has been very enjoyable to read the 1828 Webster's Dictionary definitions of truth. Here's one I'd like to share. To do truth is to practice what God commands. That's John 3. Also, while searching for the word truth, in one of our Unity Watch pamphlets, dated 3rd quarter, 2016, I thought it was very interesting that the word truth was on almost every page in every watch. I use these watches in my individual prayers. Here is one from the Blue Book or Divinity course at General Collectanea, page 53. Quote, "Truth declared is not reversed. It does appear and is manifest," etc. Thank you to Mrs. Eddy for guiding us into truth and incorporating her discovery in helping us to understand God and His omnipotence. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda.
Thank you very much for the readings tonight and the music. I'm very grateful for all I have been learning here at Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent. That's teaching me how to pray effectively for the problems we see in our world. While first working with my Plainfield practitioner, I began to witness the power of scientific prayer and its healing positive effect on those around me. I had worked with young children with special needs, most of them labeled and lacking ability to function safely in their environments, so they required close supervision. Through the prayers of the practitioner and her instruction, I saw positive changes in these children that I had never witnessed in the past years of this work. The program provided excellent care, but it was the prayers that brought a change. Only through the power of God could it be explained. It was proof that the labels of limitation had no hold over them. I saw behaviors that were difficult to manage change. Problems were alleviated. One student had a complete change from very reactive, unsafe outbursts and dark expressions to calmer looks and cooperative learning. Others began to make better choices. Learning improved. There were developmental changes that were thought not possible, or at least that quickly, or under the particular circumstances. This is only just a few things that I witnessed pretty much daily. This all happened without any change in the environment, so that could not be given credit. I cannot be grateful enough for this experience of witnessing the universal power of correctly taught Christian Science and lived, and how it answers prayers in very practical, restorative ways. And I know our prayers going out are effective even when we don't always see the results. I'm very grateful for our God, Christ Jesus, Mary Baker Eddy, in this church.
Thank you.
One of my wife's favorite verses in prose works is from the article Fidelity, where Mrs. Eddy writes, "Too soon we cannot turn from disease in the body to find disease in the mortal mind and its cure in working for God." A couple of weeks ago, one Saturday afternoon, I suddenly became very ill, very sick to my stomach. And it reminded me I had an experience like this a few months ago where I was up on a Saturday night, very ill. But by Sunday morning, I was able to attend church and actually participate in the service as I was scheduled to do. Well, this time was Saturday afternoon, and I was flat on my back. And the same thought came, will I be able to go to the service on Sunday? I was scheduled to read that Sunday. And I thought, this is not going to happen. I am not going to let the devil get the better of me, or the church for that matter. And so I went to a quiet place, and I laid down and I prayed. And I asked God, give me the strength to do what you want me to do. And I will do it. And I will not let anything come between me and what I have to do for you. And I prayed and I read. And I listened to some of the fine recordings on our website and rested. By the end of the day, I was actually able to sleep. rest peacefully. And I got up Sunday morning fully refreshed and was able to read for the service and not feel any kind of discomfort whatsoever. I have learned in Christian Science that when a disease or any kind of hindrance comes up, it's never personal. It is always an impersonal attack on the Christ. I had a job to do, and mortal mind, so-called, didn't want me to do it. I am so grateful to have learned from the example of practitioners in this church, other members of this church, that we can stand for what is right and for what is good. And having done all to stand, we don't have to give in to the suggestions of the devil that would try to keep us from being in our rightful place and doing what is right for us to do. I'm grateful for Mary Baker Eddy because she had this kind of thing to meet all the time, and she stood. And for years, for decades, she stood and taught and was an example to the whole world, to anybody who would pay attention. And I'm grateful to be a member of this church where we have learned to practice Christian Science. And I want to thank Amanda for the fine readings tonight, Jared for the fine music. And I wish you all a good night. I'm so glad to be here with you.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Amanda, for the beautiful, instructive readings tonight. I have 2 testimonies. The first one is from Kenya. My husband and I started our engineering business in Nairobi, Kenya, many years ago when our children were small. My husband and our partner are excellent engineers, and we have well-trained staff. Importation of electrical items were and are the backbone of our business. In the late 70s, our import licenses dried up, and we were told that we would not get more unless we bribed. No way. I asked a practitioner to pray with me, and we knew that truth governed our business completely. I then decided to go and see an official at our Kenyan Central Bank. While sitting waiting to see someone, I really prayed that I would meet someone who would be receptive. After 20 minutes, I was called in. I said to the official, "Please, could you help us? We help this country with our engineering skills, but we would need import licenses, which are our lifeline. We never do things under the table. Please, could you help us obtain these licenses?" And we received 3 large import licenses that following week, and ever after, we have had no problems with receiving these. In fact, these days, it is so easy to obtain the necessary import licenses. I am so grateful to know that God governs our business and all our affairs, our country, and our charity school based on Christian Science principles. I am so grateful to have found your wonderful Plainfield Church, who see Mrs. Eddy as the woman of revelation. I'm so grateful to Jesus Christ and Mrs. Eddy, and for all your inspiring services and roundtables. and the discussions. And I am so grateful to our dear Father, Mother God from Kenya, from Nairobi, Kenya. And this other one is from Australia. I wanted to give sincere gratitude for the July 11th roundtable and July 7th testimony meeting. And I'm also grateful for the testimony about the hydrangeas. Yesterday, I had to go out early, and when I returned soon after, I had mislaid my wallet in the house. I searched for a while and was feeling quite frazzled as I had to go out and pay for the work on our car, which had just been completed. I recalled a testimony during the week of a lost key which had fallen into a trouser cuff, which was found a couple of days later, which had inspired me. I had been impressed with the testifier's attitude and calmness, letting go of frantic looking and giving it over to God, an all-knowing divine mind, and awaiting his guidance and direction. I stopped looking and knew that nothing could be lost to the omnipresent mind, and a sense of buoyancy and calmness replaced the anxiety. A short time later, while listening to the daily lesson, I was directed to look under a nearby chair, and there was a standing upright, wedged between the chair and a suitcase, was my wallet. I was so grateful for this demonstration of God's care and love, and for the testimony, which was such a blessing. Today, while needing to replace a broken chain on one of our window blinds in a very awkward position, I was unable to remove the blind from its bracket. It was tiring work balancing on the ladder and wrestling with the bracket with my head pressed against the ceiling. My wife was assisting me on the other end of the blind, and we were listening to the July 11th roundtable while we were doing this work. I rested and listened for direction. The roundtable had mentioned that God with us already has an answer for every problem. Then that I reasoned that divine mind would have a solution even for fixing a blind. I got into position again, and in the idea came to let the blind down to give more wiggle room around the bracket area, and was then able to lift it out and replace the chain and then successfully reassemble it. I thanked our Father, Mother God for this practical support and rejoiced. The roundtable had uplifted our thought during this time and turned a difficult chore into a joy-filled celebration. Thanking God for being with us, something which is so beautifully echoed in Bicknell Young's article on oneness. Thank you so much for the support, and thank you for everything.
Thank you.